Hi everyone, it's Friday. It's Fiona here from fionamarks.com, and that means it's time for my 5 things to share with you about what's going on with me this week. So I'm going to share the screen and get started. This week, actually, everything has a kind of theme, all connecting it together. So I want to give you an update on my dad's health and share with you another story that brings me context and comfort during times like this. And also a guided meditation that's up on the fionamarks.com YouTube channel. Then check in about the planets that we have, what's happening this week, and remind you about lunchtime meditation and a conversation that I've had with Fernando this week about being and becoming. So you might remember a couple of weeks ago, I was telling you what's going on with my dad. So he managed to come out of intensive care after 4 weeks, and he's had a whole week or more now up in the ward and survived. So this is very good, but he's by no means out of the woods, and we could have quite an eventful week coming up next week. So last time I was speaking to you about this, I was sharing the story of the old man and the horse, and you might remember this diagram where we talked about, is it good news or bad news, and how it can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster. And this blog post was about that Zen approach, having that equilibrium, that whatever comes, one stays grounded and centered. But this week I wanted to share another story with you that comes to mind at times like this, which is from the Bhagavad Gita. And this is such an enormous mythology that I hope to do some justice to some very small part of that story to share with you the meaning that comes for me from this mythology. And basically, the Bhagavad Gita is the song of God, all about this battle that took place between these 5 righteous brothers and their uncle, who was maybe less righteous, we could say that. And there are many threads leading up to this story, but one of them is that Krishna was willing to help in this great battle, and asked the 5 brothers how could he best be of help. Either they could have Krishna as the charioteer, or they could have all of Krishna's army. And the 5 brothers chose to have Krishna as the charioteer, meaning that the uncle got all of Krishna's army. So a very large force of beings taking place in the battle. And including in that Bhishma, who was their great uncle, actually had to fight for the uncle. So he's fighting against his nephews. And one could say that Bhishma had torn allegiances because, of course, he needed to fight where his commitment and honor was, which was to the uncle. But really, he felt that the path of righteousness was with the 5 brothers. And he was a very upstanding warrior who had won a boon of basically being unkillable. So here he is fighting against the 5 brothers. He's unkillable, let's say, but having these torn allegiances. Anyway, eventually, actually, one of the brothers approaches him and says, how can we really resolve this situation? How can we bring this to a head? And so Bhishma gives them a little clue as to how they might be able to defeat him. And sure enough, they implement that plan. And Bhishma is shot in the back with hundreds and hundreds of arrows. And he is finally mortally wounded, and he falls to his deathbed. And I'm just going to see, I'm on Wikipedia here, seeing if I can share with you a picture, because it's quite striking. here he is on his deathbed on the arrows, right? So he's shot in the back so many times that when he falls over, all of the sticks of the arrows kind of hold him up. And you think, here is this great warrior who's lived 100 years, or he's lived so long because of this boon of being unkillable. And finally, his moment has come, and yet instead of leaving the body, the eldest brother comes up and asks him, and the whole Krishna stops the whole battle because such a great warrior is about to pass. And the eldest brother comes up and asks Bhishma to share what can he share with us about bondage and leaving this bondage behind, being free, becoming enlightened. And Bhishma goes on in this state for days, many days. The battle is paused while he shares the 1,000 names for Vishnu, which is another great poem which is used today as a practice to progress and to win boons. And so it's surviving even now. But this story really speaks to me of how the transition from life to death, that sometimes those transitions are longer. We have this period of uncertainty where we're still here, but we're kind of leaving, but we haven't left, but we will, and the ebb and flow of all of that. So this week, as the weeks have gone on with Dad's journey, that we still, are open to all outcomes. It just reminded me of this, and actually what a blessing it can be in the way that Bhishma shared the 1,000 names for Vishnu. What a blessing it is also to the family to have time to come up to speed with the transition that's occurring. So I feel very much that Dad is giving us, the family, the blessing of him lying there and letting us have time to catch up. So that is my update on Dad's health and the beautiful story of Bhishma. Now, that perhaps this is a theme that unconsciously perhaps I've woven through my whole week, because I just happened to post on the YouTube channel this week a guided meditation, as part of the Feeling the Agony in Your Chart series, where we're exploring the things in your chart that cause suffering and how to become still around those. I loaded up a guided meditation around being with the swing. So if you feel that you want to tap into that support when there's lots of things going on, lots of push and pull at the same time, and one is feeling maybe uncentered, or how to really let go of all of that momentum of reacting and just come to the stillness, perhaps you'd like to try that meditation. And one of the reasons why perhaps all of us are, maybe experiencing more than normal is that, I don't know whether you're aware, but right now, and for the last couple of days, there's been 6 planets in the sign of Aquarius, which is not that common, that many of the planets would line up in one place in the sky. So depends where you have this place in your chart, how you're feeling that. It's happening in Aquarius, which is the natural 11th sign. It's Aquarius is a sign of the internet, and one of the planets that's in there is Mercury, which has gone retrograde. So here in Portugal, we had the beginning of online schooling for all the government public schools. And I feel for them starting this during 6 planets in Aquarius and Mercury retrograde, but you may have had your own experiences this week. And so maybe this brings you a bit of comfort or context to know what it is that we're all going through energetically. And with that, you might want to check into the swing meditation. But I also want to welcome you and remind you that every lunchtime, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at 12 noon London time, On Zoom, we have a small group of lunchtime meditators. It's here on the website. If you click on meditation, you can book in. And every day is different. We just check in at the beginning to how everyone's feeling. Often there'll be a breath practice. Very often there's a guided meditation, sometimes a little bit of chair yoga or even getting up and moving around. So if you want some support at this time, you want to boost up your meditation practice, we'd love to see you. And finally, the last thing to share for this update is that Fernando and I have had another wonderful conversation about philosophy, traditional astrology, and Vedic astrology. And this one is about being versus becoming. So I'll just show you the details here on the we cover perennial school of philosophy and look at that phenomenon that's happened through European, like the recent 1,000 years of European history of the people, or the king separating from the Pope, so that level of society becoming different, the merchants separating from the kings, the people separating from the merchants, and this idea of perhaps in more ancient times, maybe one was more resigned to one's fate, or that was a paradigm that was around. And perhaps we have a paradigm these days of being a self-made human, and that we can do anything. So in this discussion, we cover quite a bit of history and philosophy and look at astrology as well. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, I hope that you will go and check it out. So those are all the videos that we've talked about today are all on FionaMarks.com on YouTube. Okay, so that brings us to the end of Friday 5. Hope you have had a great week, that you're handling these 6 planets in Aquarius well. There's lots of exciting things coming up next week with some more parenting conversations, and also another discussion with a different astrologer about philosophy and Vedic astrology. So I'll talk to you all about those next week. Until then, all the best. Big hug and see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.